Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Mickey if you haven't been here before, and this is a tutorial on how to make toe guards for your roller skates. So I'm making this video because my last video I had a few comments on it saying it was a little bit deceiving and that it wasn't a tutorial that I provided to make toe guards, even though I spoke about making them. To be honest, I didn't really know what I was doing as I was doing it. I was kind of making it up as I went along, so I've decided to tutorialize it now. So just going to put out some disclaimers. This is not going to be professionally made. This is just a bit of crafting, a bit of fun if you want to have a go at making your own toe guards. I don't know what it's like in whatever country you're from, but in the UK it's quite difficult to find a good variety of toe guards. That being said, if you do want to get some professionally made, I 100% recommend checking out Etsy. There's some really good little small businesses on there that make toe guards. One that I'd love to recommend is Shelley's Skates by Ella, and they have some really nice custom made toe guards on there for a really good price. They also do loads of little things like stickers, which I was going to show you, but they're on the back of my phone. So check out that store along with loads of others that are on there. And yeah, just do this for fun because it'll be fun, I promise. Also, I recommend when you're following this tutorial that you have some basic sewing knowledge. I'm going to be using a sewing machine, but I am going to explain how to do this by hand as well, but I really recommend using a sewing machine just because we're going to be using a fabric that is difficult to sew with your bare hands, so bear that in mind too. I'm going to try and use terminology that is understandable. I'm not an advanced sewer myself, but I have been doing it for several years and I'm going to use the knowledge I already know. However, it is not super complicated, so hopefully it's easy to follow. Okay, so onto a list of things that we're going to need before you start this tutorial. Number one, you're going to need some PU leather fabric. I recommend PU because it's cruelty free, first of all, and that is very dear to my heart. I feel like it's really easy to work with, and you can get different thicknesses of it, which is going to be useful if you're doing this by hand. I recommend getting a thinner one. If you're doing this with a sewing machine, then you can get an extra thicker one, but I would recommend changing out your sewing needles in the machine for leather ones. They just are a little bit better for getting through the leather. I've had needles break on me before by trying to use thicker fabric, so I 100% recommend that you get some good sewing needles. Next, you're going to need some thread, and I recommend Gutermann thread. This is like an all-purpose sewing thread, but it's really durable. You're going to need some elastic, and this is to wrap it around your toe stops securely. You're going to need a tape measure, and I recommend a fabric tape measure or a really flexible one, just so you can wrap it around the toe of your roller skates. You're going to need some scissors. Finally, we're going to need some craft paper or baking paper or parcel paper, whatever you can get your hands on. This is so that we can make this little pattern here, and this is what we need to do first before we transfer it to the fabric. Okay, so let's get into the tutorial. This is the toe guard that I made in the last video. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a paper template that we're going to transfer onto fabric. We're going to measure across the toe of your roller skate. Mine comes to 5 inches in total, and that just covers the impact part of the toe. And then you want to take your craft paper and you want to mark out those 5 inches on a straight edge. Then you want to take a tape measure and measure up from the toe to the laces, which mine works out at 3 inches. And you want to mark halfway of your 5-inch line, which is 2.5 inches. And then you're going to draw a line 3 inches up from the middle. And this is going to create like a semicircle. And that semicircle is going to be the round edge of your boot. So you can't tell from here maybe that this line here is actually completely straight, and then this is the semicircle here. So the next thing you want to do is measure from eyelet to eyelet. Once you've got that measurement, mine is 1.5 inches. So I half that, which is 0.75, and I draw a line across the middle of my center line. And now I'm going to make a long rectangle, which is going to be the front of the boot. So this is the part that takes all the impact. And you can always reinforce this bit if your fabric's quite thin, you could always reinforce it. If it gets broken during use, you can reinforce this bit, just this rectangle here. Now I don't have a compass or a protractor or anything that would help me to make these curved lines. If you have one of those, then great, I think it would be really helpful right now. But I've just guessed, and it doesn't matter if they're not even, because we're going to fold the craft paper over to make a perfect symmetrical shape. When you cut it out, because we haven't, unless you've perfectly drawn your semicircle, these aren't going to be even right now. So I recommend cutting it out in a rectangle shape, and then you can change the curve and make it symmetrical. So once you cut that out, you want to fold it down the center line. Like I said, we're making this symmetrical, so fold it directly down the center line. I'm making a rectangle down the center, and that's going to help a lot later on when we put the darts in. Essentially the darts are what pinches the fabric and makes it into more of a 3D shape rather than a flat 2D shape that it is now. So now I have a symmetrical shape. So next you want to mark an inch up from that bottom line, the 5 inches that we started with. And this is going to be, basically it follows the toe of the boot, the sole, I guess. And this is going to be a guide for where we want the darts to start. And it's going to make sense. As you watch the video, it'll make a little bit more sense. So I recommend folding that over too, because that's also going to make it easier for us to decide where the darts go. Put it onto your boot and make sure that it's fitting how you want it to. This also really helps to decide where these darts are going to go. So if you just pinch it in various places, then you're going to realize, oh, this is where it needs to be. And I've realized watching this back now that I actually drew them in the wrong place. So the one that I've drawn on the right is the correct one, because what it is we're going to pinch it from the top, whereas the one on the left I pinched from the bottom. But it's up to you, it's personal preference. I've pinched from the top, so you get that long rectangle from the top down, so it follows the laces basically. It's like an extension of the laces. So now you've got your template. It should look mostly like this. Can you see it? I've marked out the numbers too. But yeah, I think you can see that. So it should look something like this. And then you're going to transfer it to your fabric. So you want to cut out this shape plus an extra, I'd say, a ½ inch along the bottom, because we're going to fold this side over. It's getting a little bit of reinforcement, it's getting a hem. And I think this is important because this is the part that, if you're using your toe stops, this bit is going to touch the floor. So I think it's important that it's reinforced and it doesn't fray. So this is when we get the sewing machine out. Again, if you're following along and you want to do this by hand, I would recommend a back stitch. I find for me that they're the most secure. Again, be really careful because this fabric doubled up is quite thick, so it might take you a while. Just carefully sort of back stitch through it. Be careful, just be careful. Don't do this unsupervised. If you're young, don't do this unsupervised. So once you've hemmed that bottom line, and that's just a straight stitch all the way across, we want to mimic the markings on the template. So we want to get these grooves, and they're because they're our darts. So if you do this, so basically this bit is going to be invisible. I've made another line there, so this one is literally sitting on here, but this bit's going to get hidden like this. I'm lining it up with the fabric, and then I'm pulling it down a little bit just so I can reveal a little bit of fabric beneath the template. You want to mark it on the back of the fabric because you're not going to see that. So you literally just want to mark the 2 dart lines. And this is when I realised that I'd done the darts wrong, but so they want them to be symmetrical like this, like that. These two lines here. And then all I'm doing is I'm roughly getting them to meet together. And this isn't going to be terrible if it's not even. Like, this will still work either way. As you can see, they're not quite the same. But honestly, the end result, you can't really tell. Like I said, I'm not professional, so this is what you're getting. This is what you get. So you want to sew from the center down. And that's because that's going to be the hardest part to keep together while you're sewing it, because we can't use any needles because of the nature of the fabric. It's going to mark it, it's going to put a hole in it, so we don't want that. So you want to sew from the center down. So you just do that on both sides, and then it should look something like this. And then the next step is to put a little loop in the top so that we can thread our laces through. So what I'm doing now is I'm putting this fabric against another scrap of fabric and just marking out the same width. And then once I've marked out the width, I'm just going to cut this little loop. This might depend on how high up your first lace loop is. So I'd recommend keep putting it on your boot and making sure that it is in the right place. And then I'm going to reinforce the sides because, again, I felt like this bit needed a little bit more security, especially as it's going to be pulling hard on your laces. This is again where I've hemmed the sides. If you're following this not using a sewing machine, then just do a standard back stitch along the sides just to hem those two sides. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to attach it to the top. Now you've got two options here. I've just created a loop so that you have to undo all your laces to thread this through. You could add like a little press stud or maybe a button would work. This is at the stage that you could add something like that, and I'll leave that up to you. That's obviously not what I've done. I've just done a basic loop. And then the final step is to take your elastic, and I've measured my elastic to be 4.5 inches, but I realised once making this video that it depends on the style of toe stop that you have. So my toe stops, I have acrylic. I want to say they're acrylic ones, but they're big plastic toe stops, non-adjustable. So when I was trying these onto my partner's boots, he has adjustable toe stops that are a little bit closer to the ground. They've got the screw to adjust them. So I recommend if you've got adjustable toe stops or smaller rubber toe stops, then you need this to be a little bit tighter. Just if you put it on the boot and just make sure that it fits securely, then it shouldn't be an issue. So I attach it about 1 inch in. So I'm not attaching it right to the ends. It's about 1 inch in, and that's because that was the part that sat underneath my boot, and then the toe stop sort of went here. So attaching it here made sure it was directly under the boot and went round in just one loop like that. Once your elastic is attached, I recommend double stitching this. This is the only part that I've reinforced with double stitch. And again, if you're doing this by hand, just go over it a couple of times to make sure it's really, really secure. Because if anything of this is going to break, it's going to be the elastic. So I recommend, if you want to get a good wear out of these, then you can replace the elastic. If it does snap, it's easy to replace. But yeah, once your elastic's on, you're all good to attach them. So here I'm attaching this to my partner's boot because I've already got one on mine. He didn't want me to untie the laces, so I just took the little lace loop underneath the laces so you can see how it would attach. I think it does need to be a little bit tighter. The elastic needs to be a tiny bit tighter, but otherwise I'm pretty happy with the result. I did only make the one for the purpose of this tutorial, but obviously you'd go ahead and you'd make two. You can make them in different colours, you could use different coloured threads. Yeah, let me know if you have a go at this, if you make something cool. Should I make a hashtag? Is there going to be that much interest? If you make these, maybe use the hashtag Mickey's Toe Guards. Is that a good idea? Because I'd absolutely love to for you to show me what you've made. But yeah, let's do it. Hopefully a lot of people like this video and you give it a go. And if you have any questions, if I wasn't clear on anything in the video, then put a comment below. So I don't make a lot of tutorials, so hopefully this is okay, this is easy to understand. But if there's anything that was confusing, or you know, if I've confused you somewhere along the way, then just write in the comments and I'll try and explain better. If you enjoyed this video, then give me a like, tell me in the comments whether you're going to try this. Thank you so much for watching, thank you for the feedback from the previous ones, and yeah, take care, bye!